Lingue originali.
Tales of the Unexpected. Se volete storie inattese, storie inaspettate, storie sorprendenti. Ecco, credo che sia questa la traduzione in italiano più chiara, più calzante per questa raccolta di racconti di Roald Dahl, di cui la scorsa settimana abbiamo iniziato a leggere The Bookseller, il venditore di libri, il libraio, per intenderci. Bentrovati da Dario Albertini, questa è Lingue Originali e in particolare l'episodio dedicato alla letteratura, l'avete capito, in lingua inglese. Tra poco la linea e il microfono torneranno a Marco Piovaz per la seconda lettura, il secondo estratto, sempre da The Booksellers. Io avevo iniziato già nell'introduzione del primo episodio dedicato a Roald Dahl a tratteggiarne il profilo. Impossibile farlo in 2 minuti nell'ambito di un solo episodio, perché la sua è stata una vita strana, una vita ricchissima, diciamo pure avventurosa, dall'Inghilterra dei tempi agli Stati Uniti, la guerra, lo spionaggio, l'ombra dell'accusa di essere neanche troppo velatamente antisemita. C'è tanto da dire su Roald Dahl e lo faremo, abbiamo tempo, di episodio in episodio. Soffermiamoci brevemente sul suo esordio da scrittore. Siamo nel 1942. Tenete conto che Dahl era del 1916. Lui torna dagli Stati Uniti e viveva a Washington e si cimenta subito con la letteratura per bambini, che è stato il suo cavallo di battaglia, se vogliamo. Shut Down Over Libya, il suo primo libro per bambini, ha avuto un grandissimo successo, ispirato alle sue avventure o disavventure durante la guerra. E poi ancora James e la pesca gigante del 1961, che diventò anche nel 96, quindi in epoche molto più recenti, un film di animazione. Che dite, mi fermo qui? Già avevo citato gli sporcelli, la fabbrica di cioccolato, il grande ascensore di cristallo, seguito della fabbrica del cioccolato, fra le sue principali opere per bambini. Ma non ci sono solo quelle. Nuovi dettagli, nuovi particolari sulla vita di Roald Dahl nel prossimo episodio di Lingue Originali dedicato alla letteratura in lingua inglese, quell'inglese che parla e interpreta così bene il nostro Marco Piovaz, a cui cedo subito linea e microfono per il secondo estratto da The Bookseller.
Mr. Buggage continued to gaze at Miss Tottle's profile, and as he did so, a slightly lascivious glint crept into his eye. One is forced to admit that Miss Tottle's appearance, when judged by the highest standards, was disappointing. To tell the truth, when judged by any standards, it was still disappointing. Her face was long and horsey, and her teeth, which were also rather long, had a sulphurous tinge about them. So did her skin. The best you could say about her was that she had a generous bosom. But even that had its faults. It was the kind that makes a single long, tightly bound bulge from one side to the chest to the other, and at first glance one got the impression that there were not 2 individual breasts growing out of her body, but simply one big long loaf of bread. Then again, Mr. Buggage himself was in no position to be overly finicky. When one saw him for the first time, the word that sprang instantly to mind was grubby. He was squat, paunchy, bald and flaccid, and so far as his face was concerned, one could only make a guess at what it looked like, because not much of it was visible to the eye. The major part was covered over by an immense thicket of black, bushy, slightly curly hair, a fashion, one fears, that is all too common these days, a foolish practice, and incidentally a rather dirty habit. Why so many males wish to conceal the facial characteristics is beyond the comprehension of us ordinary mortals. One must presume that if it were possible for these people also to grow hair all over their noses and cheeks and eyes, then they would do so, ending up with no visible face at all, but only an obscene and rather gamely ball of hair. The only possible conclusion one can arrive at when looking at one of these bearded males is that the vegetation is a kind of smoke screen and is cultivated in order to conceal something unsightly or unsavoury. This was almost certainly true in Mr. Buggage's case, and it was therefore fortunate for all of us, and especially for Miss Tottle, that the beard was there. Mr. Buggage continued to gaze wistfully at her assistant. Then he said, "Now, Pet, why don't you hurry up and get them checks in the post? Because after you've done that, I've got a little proposal to put to you." Miss Tottle looked back over her shoulder at the speaker and gave him a smirk that showed the cutting edges of her sulphur teeth. Whenever he called her Pet, it was a sure sign that feelings of a carnal nature were beginning to stir within Mr. Buggage's breast, and in other parts as well. "Tell it to me now, lover," she said. "You get them checks done first," he said. He could be very commanding at times, and Miss Tottle thought it was wonderful. Miss Tottle now began what she called her daily audit. This involved examining all of Mr. Buggage's bank accounts and all of her own, and then deciding into which of them the latest checks should be paid. Mr. Buggage, you see, at this particular moment had exactly 66 different accounts in his own name, and Miss Tottle had 22. These were scattered around among various branches of the big three banks, Barclays, Lloyds and National Westminster, all over London and a few in the suburbs. There was nothing wrong with that, and it had not been difficult, as the business became more and more successful, for either of them to walk into any branch of these banks and open a current account with an initial deposit of a few £100. They would then receive a cheque-book, a paying-in book, and the promise of a monthly statement. Mr. Buggage had discovered early on that if a person has an account with several or even many different branches of a bank, this will cause no comment by the staff. Each branch deals strictly with its own customers, and their names are not circulated to other branches or to head office, not even in these computerized times. On the other hand, banks are required by law to notify the Inland Revenue of the names of all clients who have deposit accounts containing £1,000 or more. They must also report the amounts of interest earned. But no such law applies to current accounts, because they earn no interest. Nobody takes any notice of a person's current account unless it is overdrawn, or unless, and this seldom happens, the balance becomes ridiculously large. A current account containing, let us say, £100,000 might easily raise an eyebrow or two among the staff, and the client would almost certainly get a nice letter from the manager suggesting that some of the money be placed on deposit to earn interest. But Mr. Buggage didn't give a fig for interest, and he wanted no raised eyebrows either. That is why he and Miss Tottle had 88 different bank accounts between them. It was Miss Tottle's job to see that the amounts in each of these accounts never exceeded £20,000. Anything more than that might, in Mr. Buggage's opinion, cause an eyebrow to raise, especially if it were left lying untouched in a current account for months or years. The agreement between the two partners was 75% on the profits of the business to Mr. Buggage and 25% to Miss Tottle.
È un umorismo particolare quello degli scritti di Roald Dahl e in particolare quello che ritroviamo in Tales of the Unexpected, da cui The Bookseller. Non si può definire umorismo inglese. L'umorismo inglese lo abbiamo conosciuto con Alan Bennett. Se andate a cercare nel podcast troverete molte letture e altrettante introduzioni da parte mia, da Marco Piovaz, delle opere di Alan Bennett. È un umorismo diverso, è un umorismo anche fosco, a tinte un po' truci, c'è più che ironia sarcasmo, più che goliardia c'è un che di grottesco, molto probabilmente per l'influenza che sulla vita letteraria di Dahl hanno avuto le vicissitudini della sua vita, che continueremo a scoprire insieme nel prossimo episodio di Lingue Originali dedicato alla letteratura in lingua inglese. Sono altri 2 gli episodi di Lingue Originali ogni settimana, quello dedicato alla lingua tedesca con Nadia Meroni e quello dedicato alla lingua e alla letteratura francese con la nostra Barbara Marchand. Da Dario Albertini, grazie per l'ascolto, ci sentiamo al prossimo episodio di Lingue Originali su Caffè Italia.
Lingue Originali.